Hi everyone, it's dolltr. I'm an electronic musician and performer and producer, and when I'm not doing my artist stuff, I'm often being a music technologist, which is my day job, if you will. And I do things like live experience design, audio production, engineering, and I'm also an educator and a professor. So for the month of October, I participated in Beattober, which was a challenge that was spearheaded by my friend Tetro, and it involved making a beat for every single day of the month. In classic dolltr fashion, I kind of added on a couple more limitations for myself too. So for example, I told myself that I would prep the beat in about 30 minutes every day. I also used up to 10 tracks in my DAW, and I only did songs that were not originally by me. So covers and flips, no original dolltr songs. In this video, we're going to take a look at the performances and the productions that I did. So we're going to do some lightning breakdowns, 31 of them, to cover all of the things that I did in Beattober. If you are one of my students watching this, I really hope that this video is helpful and that it assists you in a lot of your electronic music pursuits, especially for live performance. And even if you're not one of my students, I do hope that you enjoy this. So here we go. Let's start from the beginning of Beattober all the way on October the 1st. Cool, so here we are with day one. This is Rain on Me by Lady Gaga and Ariana Grande, and it's probably my favorite tune from Lady Gaga's latest album, Chromatica, that came out earlier this year. So this is more of like a garagey take on it, two-step garage. Got a couple of vocal chops, and this kind of set me up for the vocal chop theme that I had as a running thread throughout most of Beattober as well. So it's good. I kind of developed a good workflow for doing vocal chops over the course of the month, which was very useful. And of course, some live FX processing on Push, which I used for, I did use this every day as well. So I used Push every day. This next tune is Dynamite by BTS, one of the awesomest K-pop groups at the moment. Although I do miss the older K-pop groups sometimes too. I used to listen to a lot of K-pop. Still do, in a way. But yeah, this one was cool because I did a little bit of a quote-unquote retro dancey type of spin on this. Someone compared this, Mr. Houston Singletary, compared this to some Janet Jackson vibes, and I guess that's pretty true. I did love listening to quite a lot of Janet when I was younger, especially late 90s and early 2000s. Janet just kind of got that dance pop vibe to it, especially with the synths and the chord stuff that's going on. So yeah, I thought this would be a cool way to flip Dynamite a little bit as well. Ooh, this is Takeaway by the Chainsmokers and illenium and Lennon Stella. Probably one of my favorite Chainsmokers songs as well, also off of World War Joy, which was their last album that they did. And I thought this was a really great collaboration. I remember the video as well that they filmed in New York, so that was pretty cool. And in this performance, I wanted to focus a lot more on the vocals than I usually do. Like usually I'm doing a lot of things at once. In this case, I was just doing vocals in the first part and adjusting some levels of different kinds of tracks inside live. So like changing volumes using the knobs. And then we have some vocal chops again as well. But I find that can be really effective too sometimes, like not doing everything at once, but taking things a little bit easier and just focusing on vocal delivery for that message. This next tune is K-pop. It's Lovesick Girls by Blackpink. I'm a big fan of a lot of Korean pop groups, and Blackpink has amazing music. Lovesick Girls was originally a bit of a dance pop song, so pretty upbeat as well. Synth poppy, almost a little churchesy and maybe a little bit aha as well. Like if anyone's heard of Take On Me, kind of gave me that vibe at first when I listened to it. But here's a more halftimey, trappy-ish, trap pop sort of version of this. And vocal chops again. These were some of my favorite vocal chops that I did. And yeah, this one was a really cool one to figure out how to do on Push because I ended up using a lot of the other buttons and launch functions that I don't usually use. So that was a really good opportunity to get to know Push even better. It's like, it's one thing to know what the tool can do, but another thing to actually actively put it into practice, so that was really cool. This is Be Kind by Marshmello and Halsey, and I loved this one too, focusing a bit more on the vocal stuff as well, and in this case doing some chordal stuff, I think, after this with the synths. So yeah. And maybe even leaving a little bit more space in between a lot of the things that I was doing. So like not a lot of filler stuff, but chords, empty space, and then more chords, more empty space. There's a vocal sample that I have going on. And then yeah, just a couple more scene launches. In this case, I was also doing a little bit of live duplicating of different kinds of pads. So for example, live looping a section and then immediately copying and pasting it onto a different pad on push, which is really good about push. I love that you can navigate and manipulate form in a very easy, straightforward sort of manner with this particular instrument. So one of my favorites. This is Take a Bite by Janelle Monae. And I think my favorite part of this was probably the vocoder of this entire part. And I'm also wearing my Beats by Girls shirt, which is an organization that was founded by the amazing Erin Barra, and I help a little bit with some of the activities of teaching young women about music tech, which is kind of related to the work that I do as a professor too. But yeah, this one is really fun. I loved the vocal processing effects that I did here. Ooh, and synth solo! Yeah! Cool. This one was fun also. Got to use the touch strip, which I don't often use on push, but it's really good for being able to manipulate pitch bend information and also modulation information. Here is All Right by Amber Liu and James Lee. I've been a big fan of Amber for many years, especially since the time that she was in Korea and she was in a K-pop girl group that's called FX, which we will also hear a little bit of later. FX was the very first K-pop group that I started following. But yeah, pretty simple things too here as well. A lot of scene launching, and again, a lot of chordal stuff that comes in. So not so much like vocal choppy stuff. Maybe we'll see a return soon though. But yeah, live looping, so recording the synth loops live, and then navigating the form, down scenes in Ableton Live. More volume adjustment with the knobs. So a little bit of live mixing. Ooh, Ego Death by Ty Dolla $ign, Kanye West, FK Twigs, and Skrillex. This was specifically the section that Twigs did in the original. And it was probably my favorite actually. And it was such a shame because she was only there for like, I think, close to 10 or maybe 20 seconds-ish. It was so short and I wish we could have heard more of her in the song, but I loved being able to do this. Again, more vocoder stuff going on. And that's why you're seeing all of those pads, all the vocoder notes. Ooh, this one was one of my favorites of Beattober, The Baddest by KDA from League of Legends, if anyone enjoys League of Legends. But I wanted to do something a little bit more energetic. I liked how the original was very grand and very badass. But I want to make something, a little bit more upbeat, hopefully still badass, and pun intended with the baddest. But a little bit more upbeat drum and bass stuff, and some vocal chops in this one too. And as a little bit of a hint, I've got a longer version of this in progress because I loved it so much. That may or may not be a mashup with a couple of other songs too. So yeah, lots of vocal chops. Using gate this time too though, so not just triggering chops, but holding down a pad to play it out. This is Do You Miss Me Much by Craig David. Originally, Craig David is a wonderful artist. He does a lot of UK garage style tunes, but I thought it might be interesting to put a housey spin on this instead and do a little bit of vocal choppy stuff as well. Here we got some drum live looping that's going on too. So we started off with just a kick, and then I played the clap on live and layered it on for that. And some more vocal chops. I think the slice to new MIDI track function on audio tracks has become one of my favorites for doing vocal chops, so I love that function a lot. Has some really great results always. And then skipping to the next scene and adding a couple more layers of drums and percussion. FX! This is a tune by FX, my favorite K-pop girl group like I mentioned just now. This is Four Walls. It was produced by London Noise, originally a house tune. This time doing the reverse, making it a little more garagey. So doing like the flip of that. And this also coincided with the International Day of the Girl. So it was really cool to be able to do that on the same day as I did one of my favorite girl group songs. Yay! And maybe this one I might also do a full version of. I did quite enjoy this one too. So there is hope for this. This is Mirror by Porter Robinson. And this one was pretty interesting to do also because I think the original tune was a little faster, but I wanted to give this a bit more of an older Porter Robinson / Madeon type of vibe, maybe in their Shelter era that was a little bit more dream pop based. I think the style of this song also reminded me specifically of Polygon Dust by Porter Robinson. So that kind of like more laid back, semi down tempo dream pop vibe to it. And we also had some vocal chops here. And I think in this one I did put an octaver on the vocal chops. So we only have one track of vocal chops, but there's a special audio effect on the track that makes it seem as if there's like two vocal chops playing at once. So you've got one in the normal octave and one in the lower octave. This next tune is Like I Do by David Guetta and Martin Garrix and Brooks. And I did this almost as, not a joke, but maybe a fun way of poking at a few of my students. So a part of the midterm project that I assigned a lot of my students was to do a remix of a couple of suggested tunes by the professor, and this was one of the tunes that was there. So I was like, well, since my kids are doing this, I'll do it with them and I'll make something. But they have to do a remix. This is not a remix, this is a cover, right? Because it doesn't have the original stems in it. But yeah, doing it in a little bit more of a Disclosure house type of thing, if anyone listens to Disclosure, compared to the more big room style of Martin Garrix and David Guetta and Brooks in that tune. This is Monster by Irene and Seulgi from Red Velvet, which is another K-pop girl group that I like a lot as well. The original tune was also in half-timey, more hip-hoppy trap style, but this one was more housey as well. And I liked this one too because I did some fun vocal processing effects with like filters, those kinds of things. Controlling a lot more form as well with live looping, using the repeat function on the drum rack, which was a little bit earlier on in this clip. But yeah, being able to build up with that, and now doing more volume mixing stuff and just balancing the levels of each of the parts. This is No Fear No More by Madeon, who's also one of my inspirations. Really love his overall sound, especially the first few releases that he did. Those influenced me quite a lot at the time that I was just getting into a lot of production seriously. So this was also kind of inspired by that early-ish Madeon vibe quality in a way. But yeah, thinking a lot about different ways of manipulating vocals too. I think even though I've done a lot of vocal chop stuff, each time I do vocal chops, there are a lot of subtle differences to it. And then more singing, of course, since I try to sing. I've never actually thought of myself as a vocalist, but I guess I sing-ish. Okay, Now to Be Okay, another marshmello tune, this time with Demi Lovato. I loved the original, which was a little bit more pop-ish than the usual marshmello hip-hop electronic dance music hybrids that he does. So I kind of took this a little bit more down-tempo too, so more down-tempo than the original. I thought it would be interesting to do something like that. And this one had interesting vocal chops because I wanted to play a lot with these smaller divisions of the vocal chops. I think I ended up cutting these into larger pieces, but having them all be in smaller divisions within each piece, so smaller rhythmic time divisions within each vocal chop. And here is Limitless by NCT 127, another Korean pop song as well, but one that I wanted to cover for so long. When this tune came out, I was like, wow, this is so cool. And it was produced by Kenzie, who is a K-pop producer based in South Korea that I admire so much. I remember when I first discovered a lot of K-pop, I was like trying to figure out who was making these songs, and she is such an amazing producer. She produces for a lot of artists under a company called SM Entertainment. So that sound, a lot of the sounds of artists she has contributed towards. So I admire her so much, and she does amazing work. So again, more vocal chops here. Into the Unknown. I have never done a Disney cover or flip before, so this was really cool. And I also liked how it had a triplet feel, so it was cool to do like a housey triplet type of feel. When I think about housey triplet types of feels, there aren't many songs that immediately come to mind, but it was cool to put it forward. I mean, I think Latch by Disclosure is one of them that I immediately think of. I think I Wanna Know by Noted and B. Miller is another one. But this was a neat take to do on that tune. So a lot more singing in the first part, and then the second part, vocal chops again. But I liked this set of vocal chops a lot too. So maybe this is another of those candidates that would make a full version someday. Because I really enjoyed putting my spin on this, especially for a song that was originally just like a Disney tune. This was Paper Cut by Zedd and Troye Sivan, and I think the really cool thing about this tune was that it was originally also housey, but I tried to give a little bit of a feel that was slightly different, and also, strangely enough, put in a vocoder. Zedd always does a lot of vocoder stuff that I like a lot as well sonically. So this time I was just like, hey, let's Zeddify this and put a vocoder back in. And then more vocal chops. And there weren't any vocal chops in the original, but the original tune, I think one of the reasons why I liked it was that there was a lot of counterpoint in it. And as a classically trained musician, I kind of like fell into that, and I was like, wow, this is really great writing. So I love that part a lot for the original tune. Yeah, and this next tune is another K-pop one. It's Lightsaber by EXO, but produced by London Noise, again, the same duo that produced Four Walls by FX that we heard just now. So this one's a little different too. It's got some vocal chops in. The original was also in a similar half-timey type of feel, but I thought it would be so interesting to just add a little more of the dolltr vocal chop flavor to it, especially because by this time we're at day 20, so I kind of established that the vocal chop thing is going to be a thing. And also, I should note that for the last couple of videos, I was sitting down too, because I got a little bit sick in the middle, but this next one, I'm up on my feet again. This is I Wish I Could by Toki Monsta, who's one of my all-time favorite producers, as well as Sailor Sue, who did the vocals on this track. This was a track from Toki Monsta's Lune Rouge album that was Grammy nominated, and that was amazing. I was so inspired by Toki Monsta the very first time I came across her music, in part because of really representation. I heard her music before I discovered who made the music, and I think that was the most, like, one of the most mind-blowing moments for me as an up-and-coming producer just getting started, or not even a producer at that time, just like someone who was interested, and she helped me take the plunge. This is I Am You, You Are Me by Zico, who's another amazing K-pop producer as well. The original tune for this, I think, was a little similar as well. I think I might have bumped up the tempo a little bit and also done some more vocal choppy things as well. I think something that attracted me to this song originally when I first heard it was the chord progression. So this is one tune that, yeah, I definitely kept the original chord progression and stayed pretty true to it, but just added in like some dolltr touches, like the vocal chop stuff. The synth programming before was also a little bit more dolltricky. This is Bury It by Churches. I got introduced to Churches by one of my professors back when I was in college, so this was, again, years ago. But Matthew Davidson, who's one of my all-time favorite professors, and yay, Matthew, I don't know if you're watching this. He also goes by Stretta, so check out his music and his stuff on YouTube as well. He also does have a channel. But this is Bury It by Churches, one of my favorite Churches tunes, and wanted to do a little bit more live synth playing with this one as well. So that was really fun. And some clip launching earlier on in the previous part with switching up between different time feels. So that was cool to do as well. Oh man, this was done on October the 24th, which and this tune is by Disclosure and Sam Smith, and it will always be super special to me. The day itself, October the 24th, is really meaningful because that was pretty much the day that changed my life. And that was the day that I saw Disclosure live, and before that I was a little bit of a purist, so I wasn't really into the idea of electronic music, but I was just so struck by how emotional and wonderfully connecting their performance was. Like, they were communicating with the audience, and to see a live electronic act do that in person was really big for me. So yeah, Disclosure. But this is Taylor Swift. Moving on. Death by a Thousand Cuts, probably my favorite tune off of the Lover album. And I've only ever done one other Taylor Swift cover, but this was really fun to do. And I think in part because Death by a Thousand Cuts, when I was listening to Taylor Swift describe the conception of this song, I was so intrigued by it too. And seeing the way that she performed it also on, I think, NPR was also a very cool moment. I like how she kind of reinterpreted it. So I wanted to kind of carry that same spirit. So stay true to the original spirit of the tune, but add my own spin as well. This is Worlds Away by Mern and Kara, and I love this tune in part because Mern is, also an amazing producer from Singapore. But also, I liked the idea that this was originally also kind of like a half-timey trap style thing, but I drum and bassed it. I almost said dubstep. No, I drum and bassed it. I didn't get around to dubstepping anything, but maybe I'll do that the next time I do Beattober or January. But yeah, this was really fun to do. I loved the vocal choppy stuff too. I'm such a sucker for drum and bass with vocal chops. So this is In July from Little Voice, the Apple TV series, music by Sarah Bareilles, and such a fan of the music from the series. So it was really wonderful to be able to do this. And I was also super grateful because Sarah actually shared it. I was like, yay, thank you so much, Sarah. And Mern also shared the previous one that I did, Worlds Away. He also shared that, so thank you to Mern. Thank you to everybody who's been sharing my stuff. But yeah, some vocal chops. And definitely taking things a little bit more dolltr electronic-y style. A little bit more of an uplifting mood too compared to the original that was a bit more laid back, indie type of thing. Take Me Back by Yellow Claw, Corsac, and Julia Wu. This one is fun for me, and I don't sing in Mandarin enough, but I love it when I do it, and this was a great opportunity for me to do this, especially because again I drum and bassed this up. But yeah, I love singing in Mandarin. It kind of reminds me a lot of in a weird way, my childhood or my youth. And I used to speak a lot more Mandarin, partially because it was required by the education system that I was in. But yeah, also miss speaking to my friends who spoke a lot of Mandarin back in college. This is Toxic by Britney Spears. I tried to put a garagey spin on it because I'm a big fan of the original tune. And this one was cool because I think this one also turned out pretty well. I might do a full one of this just because I'm such a sucker for like the earlier Britney tunes like Toxic, Baby One More Time. Those early hits are like classics always in my head. So this was really fun to do. Garagey type of style as well, but again focusing a lot on the vocals as well, and this time it's a vocoder loop that's kind of going on. More vocoder stuff with Hua by CL. This was one of her latest tunes off of one of her more recent releases. I think she hadn't released music in quite a long time, so this just happened earlier in the month, in October. And when she put out the songs, I was just like, oh, yay, finally! So had to do some kind of version of it. The original tune, again, was a little bit more to the hip-hop side of things, but this was really cool to do a more housey type of vibe, darker house. Ooh, this one is fun. This was a collaboration with my dear friend Teitro, the originator of Beattober. We did another K-pop tune, and this is Blooming by IU. So a lot of vocal stuff as well on my end. Teitro is doing a lot of the drums and guitar stuff. But it ended up working out well. We kind of hocketed the parts, so we said, okay, I'll do this, and then he would do the other parts. But it was really great. I think it worked out well. We did stress out a little bit because we wanted to do this a little bit earlier on in the month, actually, but we were both so busy doing tons of things. Like, he does so many things. I don't know how he does it. Teitro, you are amazing. I was also doing quite a few things in real life too, but I'm so glad that it ended up working out. So again, using Push, I did a lot of vocoder stuff, and for this next part, doing a bunch of live arpeggiator playing, so that's why I'm only holding down like a couple of notes, but you're hearing a lot of those active arpeggiations happening. And yeah, Teitro killing it on the guitar, look at him go. And this tune for me was also vocally pretty challenging just because IU, who's an amazing K-pop singer, has a really wonderful range too, so I was like, oh, but it turned out really well, and that was the end of Beattober. So yes, big thank you again to everyone who was coming along with me on this Beattober journey for the last 31 days. It was really crazy, but I think I learned so much from the experience, and I also had a ton of fun. Big shout out to Tatro for even thinking of this in the first place. I do believe he started it last year. I may or may not be wrong. But this was such a great experience, and so many people participated. It was really inspiring to see all of the other Beattober videos too. And thank you, Tatro, for the collaboration too at the end. I think that was definitely one of like my Beattober highlights. So I had so much fun doing it. Maybe we'll do another one hopefully in the future, or there might be some crossing of the Tatro universe and the dolltr universe. We're not at cinematic universe level yet, but maybe we'll be there soon. As I mentioned, I also have the weekly recap videos up on YouTube, so if you do want to revisit a couple of the other previous week's stuff that I've done week by week, you can absolutely see those on my channel too. All in all though, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was really fun to do and share a little bit more about the conceptualization of all of these different performances. I definitely think I will do this again next year, and you know what, it might be sooner than later if I end up doing January and January too. And speaking of that, you can also check out my January video of the breakdowns I did, and also the earlier weekly recaps too, earlier on this year in January 2020. If you like to keep up with me on Instagram, you can follow me at dolltr, and on YouTube, it's also going to be at dolltr. I've also got some new music coming up, everyone, so super excited for it. And you can find that in lowercase letters as DOLLTR !CK across platforms. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you again soon. Bye. dolltr.